Imagine if the very things you struggle with most weren't roadblocks, but like breadcrumbs leading you to who you're truly meant to be.
Hmm.
What if those uncomfortable feelings, those doubts you try to squash, actually held the secret to a more, well, vibrant and purposeful life?
That's a really provocative thought, isn't it? To think of our inner conflicts not as enemies, but more like messengers.
Exactly. And that's what we're really diving into today. The shadow self. It's this powerful concept from Carl Jung.
Right.
Think of the shadow as your disowned self, maybe. The unconscious parts holding all those traits, desires, personality bits you've decided are unacceptable, or maybe just shameful.
Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What aspects of yourself do you tend to push away or, pretend aren't there? Jung would say those hidden corners are exactly where we need to look.
And here's the kicker. Get this.
Mhm.
This shadow, the stuff we try to bury deep down, it paradoxically holds the seeds of your greatest strengths.
Really. Strengths.
No. Yeah, and Jung believed the very blueprint for a truly fulfilling life. I mean, think about how often you avoid certain thoughts or behaviors because they just make you squirm.
Mm.
Or maybe you find yourself judging someone else really intensely for a trait that, if you're being brutally honest, you kind of recognize in yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey.
Jung had such a sharp insight there. He said something like, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves.
It's like the world is just holding up a mirror, isn't it? Reflecting our own unacknowledged bits back at us.
Exactly. So the shadow isn't just, some dark pit inside. It's also about untapped potential. Raw energy we've suppressed, maybe out of fear, maybe shame.
So take a second right now listening to this. What parts of yourself do you actively try to hide? Not just from others, but even from your own awareness.
Could be anything, right? Fear of failure, maybe a stubborn anger, that little bit of envy.
Or even a passion you've dismissed as totally impractical. Like, oh, I could never do that.
And what's so crucial here, what Jung really emphasized, is that these hidden parts aren't flaws to be, surgically removed.
Okay.
They're actually vital pieces of the puzzle of who you are. They've got valuable clues about your true nature baked right in.
Which brings us neatly to Jung's idea of individuation. This journey towards becoming, well, whole. A complete self.
Mm-hmm.
He believed that by bravely, and it does take bravery, confronting our shadow, we can actually integrate it, bring it into our conscious awareness.
Yeah, individuation. In Jung's framework, it's basically the quest to discover your authentic self, peeling back the layers of the persona, that mask we show the world.
The public face.
Exactly. To get to the genuine person underneath, complete with both the light and the shadow, it's about embracing the whole package.
It definitely sounds like a journey that demands real courage and a serious commitment to honesty, right? A willingness to explore some pretty uncomfortable inner territory.
No doubt. But Jung was clear. The rewards are immense. A greater sense of wholeness, real authenticity. He argued that our biggest growth spurts don't come from denying the darker stuff.
But from embracing it.
Precisely. From turning towards it.
You know, it makes me think of myths and stories, the classic hero's journey.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, the hero almost always has to face not just monsters out there, but some inner darkness too, right? Hercules battling his own rage, Luke Skywalker confronting the dark side.
Ah, good examples. They mirror our own psychological journeys, don't they? That internal battle.
Totally. So the question for you listening becomes, are you ready to maybe take that first step? To turn towards those parts you've been avoiding and just ask, okay, what are you trying to teach me?
Because Jung's work suggests our shadow isn't trying to sabotage us. It's almost like an internal guide.
A guide. How does it guide us?
Well, it communicates, often indirectly, through dreams, through our fears, even through the patterns in our relationships.
Interesting. So those recurring dreams, the ones that stick with you.
Could be direct messages from the unconscious, yeah. Or that really strong, maybe inexplicable pull towards something, or even a strong aversion. That would be the shadow signaling an unacknowledged need or desire.
Okay, so if we want to start this work, how do we actually begin to identify the shadow? And then, I guess, accept it.
Well, the first step is just awareness, paying attention. Jung suggested tuning into emotions and reactions that feel, well, bigger than the situation seems to warrant.
Like disproportionately intense.
Exactly. Those moments where you feel really strongly, maybe angry, maybe fearful, maybe even intensely admiring. Those can be signals pointing to a hidden part of yourself.
And once you notice these patterns or these traits, what then?
The next step is acceptance. And it's crucial to understand what acceptance means here. It doesn't mean indulging every negative impulse or acting out destructively.
Okay, important distinction.
Very. It's more about acknowledging these parts exist within you without harsh judgment. Just seeing them, understanding they're part of your inner landscape.
Imagine the freedom in that, though, to stop fearing your so-called flaws and see them maybe as tools for growth.
Absolutely. Think about the authenticity, the real confidence that could come from embracing your whole self, shadow included.
And it's worth saying, this shadow thing, it's universal, right? Not some rare problem.
Oh, completely. It shows up everywhere in our habits, our relationships, and especially in those knee-jerk reactions we sometimes have.
Yeah, those moments where you lash out and later think, where on earth did that come from?
That's often the shadow making an appearance, right? When emotion just takes over logic.
And Jung's idea of the unconscious helps explain why that feels so powerful. Like, the more we try to deny or suppress something.
The more power we actually give it. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The harder you push, the more force it builds up.
But think about the flip side. If you could actually bring those hidden parts into the light, understand where they came from, what they want, wouldn't that give you more control, more freedom?
A deeper sense of inner freedom. Yeah, that makes sense.
And this connects directly to that fascinating idea of projection.
Projection. Okay, tell us about that.
Well, Jung noticed that when we disown parts of ourselves, traits we don't like or accept, we tend to see those exact traits magnified in other people.
And then react strongly to them.
Bingo. You react strongly. Maybe you're secretly insecure about, I don't know, your intelligence. You might find yourself really critical of people who seem boastful or overly intellectual.
Or maybe you dismiss people who are really successful in an area where you feel you've failed.
Precisely. Jung saw this as a kind of psychological mirror. The outside world reflects back the parts of ourselves we haven't owned yet.
He put it so well, didn't he? Something like, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people.
Such a powerful quote. It suggests that understanding your own inner stuff helps you navigate the complexities you see out in the world, in others.
So a practical takeaway for you listening. Think about someone who really pushes your buttons, consistently triggers a strong reaction.
Instead of immediately focusing on them, pause. Ask yourself, okay, what's my reaction telling me about me? What part of my own shadow might I be projecting here?
And crucially, this isn't about blaming yourself, not at all.
All right, it's discovery.
Exactly, it's self-discovery. Each projection is actually a chance to reclaim a piece of yourself you didn't even know was missing.
Okay, let's take this even deeper. How does this shadow connect to our sense of purpose? That seems like a big leap.
It might seem like it, but Jung saw a profound link. Often, the very things we suppress are tied to our unique gifts, our passions.
How so? Give me an example.
Well, think of someone who stifles their creativity because they're terrified of failing or being judged.
Okay.
If they can embrace that fear, that shadow aspect, and maybe understand where it comes from, they might unlock this incredible creative force that's actually central to their purpose.
So purpose isn't found out there somewhere. Jung would argue it's uncovered within. By aligning with your authentic self, and that includes the shadow. It's not about finding the perfect job. It's about become the person you truly are.
He had another great quote about that, didn't he? The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are.
Beautifully put. And the way to start becoming who you truly are is through honest self-inquiry, asking the tough questions.
Like what? What kind of
Oh,
question?
well, what am I really most afraid of about myself? What parts of me have I learned are unacceptable, maybe from family or society?
Oof, big questions.
Yeah, and what passions or dreams did I push aside because they felt too risky, too impractical, maybe even unworthy?
And Jung himself was big on journaling for this, right?
Wow.
Exploring the unconscious.
Huge. He kept incredibly detailed journals and really encouraged his patients to record their dreams diligently. Dreams, for Jung, were like a direct hotline to the unconscious.
So if you're having dreams that really stick with you, recurring images, weird symbols, strong emotions,
Pay attention. Jung would say those are valuable messages. Ask yourself, what feelings came up? What's going on in my life that might connect to this? It can be incredibly insightful.
okay, so we identify it, we start asking questions. What about the integration part? What does that actually look like? And why is it transformative?
Think of an artist who refuses to use dark colors. Their paintings might be pleasant, maybe, but they'd lack depth, contrast, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
they feel kind of flat.
Exactly. When we integrate our shadow, it's like adding those darker shades to our palette. We gain access to a much richer, fuller spectrum of human experience.
So integration isn't about acting out those dark impulses. We keep coming back to that.
Absolutely not. It's about understanding and accepting these darker aspects as just part of being human.
Hmm.
And paradoxically, this acceptance fosters deep self-compassion.
And compassion for others, too.
Definitely. Because you start to recognize that everyone carries a shadow. It connects us in our shared humanity.
Now, this sounds like, well, not a quick fix.
Oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint. A lifelong journey, really. It takes patience, courage, and an ongoing commitment to looking within.
But the rewards, Jung seemed to think they were worth it.
Absolutely. Greater clarity about your purpose, a deeper sense of inner peace, the freedom to actually live authentically as your whole self.
And you mentioned Jung believed this individual work has a wider impact.
Yeah, he talked about the collective unconscious, the shared pool of human experience. He believed that when we individually confront our shadows and strive for wholeness, it actually contributes positively to that collective level.
So healing ourselves helps heal the world, in a way.
That was his view. You're not just transforming your own life, you're potentially modeling a different way of being, inspiring others.
Okay, let's get really practical then. How do we actually put this into practice? What are some concrete steps for integration?
It really starts with radical self-honesty. Looking at yourself without the usual filters or excuses.
Easier said than done.
Oh, for sure. It takes courage to just acknowledge, yeah, okay, I do feel jealous sometimes, or wow, I really judge that person unfairly. Not with condemnation, just awareness.
Like taking inventory.
Exactly. You can't organize the clutter until you see what's actually there. You can't integrate the shadow until you honestly recognize its presence and how it operates in you.
Okay, so honesty first. What else?
Pay close attention to your emotional triggers. We touched on this, but it's key. The next time you have a really strong reaction, anger, fear, even intense admiration, pause.
Just pause.
Yeah. And ask, why this reaction? Why now? What might this reveal about me? Is there a projection happening here?
So if someone's boastfulness really bugs me,
Maybe ask, is there a part of me that wants recognition but is afraid to ask for it? Or does their confidence just highlight my own insecurity? It's that kind of inward turning.
it feels uncomfortable just thinking about it. It's easier to blame them.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
But the goal isn't blame, it's understanding. Every trigger is like a little doorway into deeper self-awareness if you're willing to walk through it.
Okay. Honesty. Triggers. Jung also suggested actually talking to the shadow. That sounds a bit strange.
It might sound unusual, yeah, but it's a powerful technique. Think of it as externalizing those hidden parts so you can understand them better. Almost like they're separate characters you can dialogue with.
How would you do that? Journaling.
Journaling's great. Or meditation, visualization. Create a space mentally to connect with that part of you, the envious part, the angry part, the fearful part.
And ask it questions.
Yeah, simple questions. Why do you feel this way? What are you trying to protect me from? What do you need to feel seen or acknowledged?
The idea being that these parts aren't just bad.
Exactly. They likely developed for a reason, maybe to protect you somehow, even if that strategy isn't helpful anymore. This dialogue can bring surprising insights, maybe uncovering the root of a fear from childhood, or even recognizing a strength you've suppressed.
Wow. Okay, now let's talk relationships. How does all this shadow stuff play out with the people in our lives?
Oh, significantly. Our unresolved shadow aspects don't just stay inside. They absolutely manifest in our interactions, often as friction or conflict.
You ever notice how some couples seem to have the same argument over and over?
Right. Or maybe you see a pattern where you keep attracting the same type of partner or facing similar challenges in different relationships.
Yeah.
Jung would say our relationships often act like mirrors, reflecting our own unconscious dynamics back at us. When someone's behavior intensely triggers you, it's often because they're touching on something in your own unacknowledged shadow.
So instead of just blaming them,
You can use it as an opportunity for growth. Ask yourself, okay, what is this situation teaching me about myself? What part of my shadow is being lit up right now?
that's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. And it deepens your self-awareness. And honestly, it can foster way more compassion, both for yourself and for the other person.
Let's loop back to creativity and purpose. You said embracing the shadow can actually enhance these.
Yes, because the shadow isn't just negative stuff. Jung saw it as a source of immense untapped energy and potential.
Energy we're using to keep it suppressed.
Precisely. Think about all the energy it takes to hold that beach ball underwater. When you start integrating the shadow, you redirect that energy.
How might that look?
Well, suppressed anger, once understood and channeled, could fuel passionate advocacy for justice. A hidden desire for connection might inspire beautiful art or powerful public speaking.
So you reclaim that energy for things aligned with your true self.
Exactly. And you see this in many impactful figures, don't you? Their work often shows this deep engagement with their own complexity, their own shadows.
Frida Kahlo's raw emotion comes to mind.
Great example. Or Martin Luther King Jr. channeling righteous anger into a movement for change. Jung really saw creativity itself as a pathway to individuation, a way to access these deeper parts.
So for anyone listening, maybe think about those passions you set aside, the ones that felt too risky, too vulnerable.
Could those be expressions of your truest self, just waiting for you to acknowledge the shadow parts holding them back? As you integrate, traits that felt overwhelming or shameful can actually transform into sources of strength, wisdom.
Leading to more authenticity, confidence, and real purpose.
Exactly.
Which brings us to maybe the ultimate point here. This idea of wholeness and the impact it has.
Right. Jung was adamant. You can't achieve wholeness by rejecting parts of yourself. It's about unity, harmony within. Like he said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious.
Making the darkness conscious, that's the work.
That is the shadow work. Not denying darkness, but understanding it, owning it, using it for growth.
And maybe a powerful way to make it conscious is through vulnerability.
Absolutely. When you can openly acknowledge your fears, your flaws, they lose some of their power over you. True vulnerability isn't weakness, it's immense strength. It's saying, this is all of me, the messy bits too, and that's okay.
And how does that affect connection with others?
Think about it. We often present such a curated version of ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, the highlight reel.
Right. And while that's understandable, it hinders genuine connection. Embracing your shadow allows you to show up more fully, more authentically. And that gives others permission to do the same. It fosters much deeper, more meaningful relationships.
And this inner work, it changes how we feel inside too, presumably.
Definitely. When you stop fighting yourself internally, when you start integrating these disparate parts, there's a profound shift towards inner peace. That inner peace then radiates outward, influencing how you approach everything, life, work, purpose. You operate from alignment, not inner conflict.
And that purpose we keep talking about,
Yeah.
it really arises from that alignment, doesn't it?
Jung would say yes. It's not just what you do, but who you are becoming. Your purpose is intrinsically linked to your unique blend of strengths, passions, and yes, even your struggles and your shadow.
So the shadow can actually guide us to our purpose.
In a beautiful way, yes. Maybe a deep feeling of unworthiness, once integrated, fuels a passion for helping others see their value. Maybe righteous anger, integrated, fuels a fight for justice. Our wounds, genuinely processed, can become our wisdom.
And ultimately, if more people did this work,
Imagine the potential impact. When individuals take responsibility for their own darkness instead of projecting it onto others or groups,
conflict would lessen.
you'd expect so. Understanding would deepen, we'd become more compassionate, more empathetic, recognizing the shared human struggle. It moves us towards a more conscious, connected world. That's the real potential here.
Wow. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe a final challenge for everyone listening.
Yeah, definitely. Take some time, look within at those hidden parts. Ask yourself honestly, what is my shadow trying to teach me right now?
And how can I use those lessons, however uncomfortable, to live more authentically? What's one small step I could take today towards integration?
Remember, this is a lifelong journey. It's
Yeah.
not about perfection.
No quick fixes.
No quick fixes.
Mm-hmm.
But every step you take towards embracing all of who you are brings you closer to your true self, a self with more depth, more purpose, more wholeness.
We really encourage you to continue exploring this. What insights resonated with you today? What questions came up? Maybe even share your reflections if you feel comfortable. Your journey might just inspire someone else.
Absolutely. Think of this not as an ending, but as a new beginning. A fresh chapter focused on embracing everything you are and living from that authentic place.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. We wish you courage, wisdom, and peace on your ongoing journey of self-discovery.